Let me ask you something personal. Have you ever done something good and felt a small desire that someone should notice it? Be honest. When you work hard, do you only want money? Or do you also want respect? When you post something thoughtful online, is it only to share wisdom? Or is there a tiny hope for validation? This is where the elephant in the brain begins to challenge us. The author suggests something uncomfortable. Human beings are experts at self-deception, not because we are evil, but because evolution wired us this way. We compete for status. We compete for approval. We compete for belonging. And the smartest trick our brain ever learned was hiding these competitive motives from ourselves. Why? Because if we openly chase status, power, admiration, people wouldn't trust us. So instead, our brain creates beautiful stories. Stories about kindness. Stories about morality. Stories about pure intentions. And most of the time, we believe those stories. That's the elephant in the brain. Before we begin, let me introduce you to our writers. The book is written by two thinkers who are not afraid to ask uncomfortable questions, Kevin Simler and Robin Hanson. Kevin Simler is a sharp writer who explores human psychology in a way that feels almost personal. Robin Hanson is an economist and professor who studies human behavior, incentives, and hidden patterns in society. Together, they ask the dangerous question, what if we don't really know why we do what we do? And that question alone changes everything. Because most of us believe we understand ourselves. We believe, I know why I chose this career. I know why I help people. I know why I argue about politics. I know why I post online. But this book suggests something shocking. Sometimes we don't. Sometimes our brain tells us one story, but our hidden motives tell another. And when you understand this, your entire perception of human behavior shifts. Reading or listening to The Elephant in the Brain may change the way you observe yourself and others. It helps you become more aware of why you make certain decisions. Sometimes we believe we are choosing something only because it is logical or moral. But this book gently teaches that our mind is influenced by social pressure, emotional comfort, and a desire for recognition. When you understand this, you start thinking more clearly. You may become less affected by unnecessary social comparison. In simple words, this book helps you understand yourself a little better. And when you understand yourself better, life becomes a little clearer and more meaningful. Before we dive in, let us introduce you to two people you'll be walking with throughout this audiobook. Meet Daniel. Daniel is ambitious, rational, the kind of person who believes he makes decisions based on logic and evidence. He works hard, helps others, speaks confidently about values and principles. On the surface, everything he does makes sense, but deep down, there might be more going on. And then there's Sophia. Sophia is thoughtful, emotionally intelligent. She believes she understands people well, including herself. She journals, reflects, questions society. She wants to grow, but even she doesn't always see the full picture. Now here's something important. Daniel and Sophia are not characters from the original book. We created them intentionally for this audiobook, so you can see the ideas in action. Because on our channel, we don't just explain concepts. We make them practical, actionable, real. As we move forward, you'll notice something surprising. Sometimes you'll think, that's exactly what Daniel does. Other times you'll whisper, wait, that's me. And that's the point. Through Daniel and Sophia, we're not just understanding hidden motives. We're learning to spot our own elephant. Let's begin. Daniel walks to his office window. The city is awake. Cars moving like quiet thoughts. People walking with invisible goals. Everyone seems busy. Everyone seems sure. But inside, Daniel feels something he cannot clearly name. Not anxiety. Not happiness. Something in between. Something soft. Something searching. He remembers his college days. He wanted success. But if someone had asked him back then, why do you want success? He would have said, because I want to build my future. A respectable answer. A clean answer. But was it the whole truth? Maybe not, because when he received praise from professors, when classmates admired his intelligence, something inside him felt alive. Not loudly, but quietly, like sunlight touching a closed window. Sophia is different. She walks through the community center slowly, checking donation materials. Children are playing nearby. A young girl runs toward her and hugs her leg. "Thank you for helping us," the girl says. Sophia smiles. Her eyes become slightly moist. She tells herself it is compassion. And maybe it is, but somewhere inside, there is also the warmth of being needed. Humans are complicated like that. We are capable of genuine kindness, and simultaneously, we are sensitive to social approval. This is not hypocrisy. This is biology. Thousands of years ago, our ancestors lived in environments where acceptance by the group meant survival. If the tribe trusted you, you ate. If the tribe rejected you, life became dangerous. So the brain learned something powerful. It learned to protect the self-image. It learned to create stories that make us feel morally consistent. We do not like thinking that we are driven by selfishness, because selfishness feels ugly. But what if selfishness is not always obvious? What if it hides behind beautiful words? Words like, "I just want to help. I just want truth. I just want success. I just want peace." The brain is a master storyteller. It edits memories. It justifies decisions. It protects our identity. If Daniel works hard and succeeds, he will remember his passion. If Daniel works hard and fails, he might blame circumstances. The story adjusts itself. Sophia thinks about her volunteer work. Sometimes she wonders silently, would I feel the same if nobody noticed my contribution? She does not ask this question loudly, because the answer is uncomfortable. And human beings are not always brave enough to face uncomfortable truth inside their own mind. That is why we prefer certainty, even if that certainty is partially false. The narrator speaks softly. Listen carefully. This book is not telling you that people are evil. It is not telling you that kindness is fake. It is telling you something more subtle. Humans are not purely rational. We are not purely selfish. We are a mixture of conscious intention, social pressure, evolutionary memory, emotional storytelling, and the storyteller inside our brain is very convincing. So convincing that sometimes we become audience to our own life story. Daniel checks his promotion email again. Sophia watches the children play. Both feel a small, quiet satisfaction. Not loud, not proud, just comfortable. And comfort is powerful, because comfort tells the brain, you are accepted, you are good, you are safe. But beneath comfort, the elephant waits silently, large, patient, watching. In the next part, we will explore something deeper, something more uncomfortable, why the human brain prefers hidden motives instead of truth. Because sometimes knowing the truth is not the brain's priority. Staying socially safe is. And that is where the story becomes truly interesting. The evening light slowly fades over Chicago. Daniel Brooks is sitting in a cafe near his office. Laptop open, coffee getting cold. He is reading work reports, but his mind is somewhere else. Not exactly distracted, more like searching for something he cannot name. He remembers something he read once, a strange idea. The human brain is not always designed to discover truth. Sometimes it is designed to maintain social harmony. Daniel leans back slowly. What does that mean? Across the city, Sophia Miller is walking home after volunteering. The street lights are turning on one by one. Children are laughing somewhere behind her. She feels tired, but satisfied. And then a small thought enters her mind. Why do I feel good after helping strangers? She does not answer immediately, because the question feels slightly dangerous. Let's go back. Thousands of years ago, humans lived in small tribal groups. In those groups, survival depended on cooperation. But cooperation had a hidden rule. You were expected to help the group, but you were also expected to appear good while doing it, because nobody trusted someone who openly said, I am helping you because I want status. So evolution built something clever. The brain learned to hide selfish motives, not by removing them, but by wrapping them inside moral stories. Imagine this. If Daniel says, I want promotion because I want respect, people may feel uncomfortable. But if Daniel says, I want promotion because I am passionate about innovation, People nod and smile. The second story is socially acceptable. The first story feels raw, and the brain prefers social safety. So, over time, Daniel himself starts believing the second story, not consciously lying, but slowly internalizing the narrative. This is self-deception. Sophia faces the same mechanism. When she helps others, her brain releases positive emotional signals, because in ancestral environments, helping the tribe increased survival probability. A person who was known as generous was more likely to receive help during danger. So kindness was not only morality, it was also long-term social strategy. But here is the interesting paradox. Humans are capable of genuine compassion, yet our brain quietly mixes compassion with social reward. It is like music where multiple instruments play together. You hear harmony, but you may not notice individual notes. Daniel finishes his coffee. He watches people walking outside the cafe window. He thinks about his career. He wonders, if no one watched my success, would I still feel the same motivation? Sophia reaches her apartment. She removes her shoes slowly. Silence feels comfortable, but then another thought appears. If nobody knew I volunteered, would I still feel satisfied? The thoughts are not accusations. They are observations. And observation is a first step toward awareness. The book The Elephant in the Brain argues that humans are extremely good at rationalizing behavior after making decisions. We decide first, then we create logical reasons later. The brain is like a lawyer defending the identity we already chose, not necessarily searching for truth, but protecting consistency. Because inconsistency feels dangerous to the self-image. If Daniel believes he is purely passionate about work, admitting status motivation would feel like betrayal of his own story. If Sophia believes she helps only out of compassion, admitting desire for recognition may feel morally disturbing. So the brain chooses silence, not deception. Silence. And inside that silence, the elephant grows quietly, large, invisible, patient, but awareness changes everything. Because awareness does not remove hidden motives. It simply makes them less controlling. In the next part, we will enter something more interesting. We will explore how the elephant appears in everyday life, in conversation, in consumption, in art, and in the small social games humans play without realizing it. And Daniel and Sophia will start noticing things they never noticed before. Because once the light is turned on, shadows behave differently. The next morning arrives slowly. Sunlight touches the glass windows of Chicago. Daniel Brooks is walking toward his office. People pass him on the street. Some are talking loudly. Some are checking phones. Some are walking with confident steps. And Daniel starts noticing something strange. People are always communicating more than words. Clothes, walking style, phone brand, voice tone, posture, everything is sending signals. Even silence sends signals. Daniel remembers something from psychology. Human behavior is not only about survival, it is also about social positioning. Without saying it directly, people constantly answer three questions. Who am I? Where do I belong? How important am I? This is where hidden motives become visible. Let's talk about conversation first. When two people talk, they often believe they are sharing information. But research discussed in The Elephant in the Brain suggests something deeper. Conversation is partly social competition. People like showing intelligence. People like demonstrating knowledge. People like being interesting. Imagine a dinner conversation. Someone tells a story. Another person adds a smarter detail. Then another person improves the story further. It is not always conscious, but it is a subtle status dance. Sophia experiences something similar. She attends a community meeting. People talk about social issues. Everyone agrees about helping society. But sometimes, people speak in ways that make them appear morally superior. Not necessarily maliciously, but naturally. The brain likes moral approval. Because in social groups, moral reputation acted like invisible currency. Now think about consumption. Daniel buys an expensive watch. He tells himself, it helps me manage time. Maybe it does. But the same watch also communicates success. Not loudly, but visually. Luxury items often carry hidden social signals. Not always, but often enough to matter. Sophia notices something different. People donate money during public events more than private settings. Why? Because public donation carries reputation reward. This does not mean people are fake. It means human motivation is layered, like an onion. Visible layer, stated reason. Hidden layer, social reward. Deeper layer, psychological comfort. Deepest layer, evolutionary survival programming. Now, think about art. Why do humans create art? Is it only self-expression? The book suggests something controversial. Art may also function as status signaling. People admire creators. Artists gain prestige. Society respects cultural producers. So art carries beauty and social value. Daniel feels uncomfortable thinking this because he loves music. He wants to believe art is purely emotional, but the narrator speaks softly. You can appreciate beauty and still understand social psychology. Sophia thinks about charity. She realizes something subtle. People sometimes prefer helping causes that are visible because visibility increases social appreciation. Again, this does not destroy kindness. It reveals motivation complexity. Human beings are not machines with single purposes. We are adaptive emotional systems. Now, Daniel sits in his office. He watches colleagues talking near the coffee machine. They're discussing politics. Each person speaks with strong confidence, not necessarily because they know everything, but because confidence itself is socially valuable. Uncertainty is often socially punished, so people hide uncertainty behind strong statements. Sophia volunteers again in the evening. She feels good, but she also notices something inside. Helping others feels meaningful, but being recognized as helpful also feels comforting, and this dual feeling is normal. The book does not ask you to become cold or cynical. It asks you to become honest with yourself. The goal is not to remove hidden motives. That is impossible. The goal is awareness, because when you see your own elephant, you stop being controlled by it blindly. Daniel closes his laptop slowly. He whispers to himself, "Maybe I am more complex than my own story." Sophia walks home thinking, maybe kindness and social acceptance are not enemies. In reality, human behavior is a mixture of truth, survival, and social connection. And the most dangerous illusion is believing we are purely rational, because humans are not purely rational. And that is not a weakness. It is our evolutionary design. In the next part, we will enter the most controversial section. We will explore hidden motives inside big social systems, charity, education, medicine, and politics. And the story of Daniel and Sophia will become emotionally deeper, because the elephant is not only inside individuals. Sometimes it lives inside institutions too. Let's continue. Night has fallen over the city. Chicago shines quietly under streetlights. Daniel Brooks is standing near his apartment window. Sophia Miller is sitting in her living room, reading news articles about social programs. Both are thinking, without speaking, because the questions inside their minds are getting heavier. Let's talk about something sensitive, not to criticize society, but to understand human behavior. The narrator speaks softly. What if some of our social systems are not driven only by their stated goals? What if there are hidden incentives behind them? The book The Elephant in the Brain explores this idea carefully. Let's start with charity. Charity is usually presented as pure compassion, helping people in need. And sometimes it is exactly that. But human psychology is rarely single-layered. Public charity can also provide social reputation. People may feel good because they helped and because others noticed. Sophia remembers community events where donation announcements were made publicly. She never judged it, but she observed it, because human beings are naturally sensitive to recognition. Now education. Why do people value prestigious education? Of course, education helps learning. But education also signals intelligence, discipline, and social capability. Daniel remembers his MBA graduation ceremony. The happiness was not only about knowledge. It was also about achievement recognition. Parents felt proud. Friends congratulated. Society validated. The certificate was not just information. It was social signaling. Now medicine. Medicine is extremely important. The goal of medicine is health, but sometimes patients want reassurance as much as treatment. People often visit doctors not only to cure illness, but to reduce anxiety. The feeling that a professional confirmed I am safe can be psychologically powerful. Sophia thinks about her own hospital visits. She remembers feeling calmer after hearing, "You are fine," even if she already suspected it. Now politics. This is the most emotionally charged domain. People often believe political discussions are about solving national problems. But research discussing the elephant in the brain suggests another layer. Politics may also function as group identity signaling. People express political views to show loyalty to their social tribe. Daniel avoids political arguments at work. He noticed that people rarely change opinions during heated debates, because debates are often not about truth. They are about social alignment. Sophia watches online discussions. She sees people defending ideas with emotional intensity, not always because of evidence, but because ideas become part of personal identity. Now listen carefully. This does not mean institutions are bad. It does not mean charity is fake. It does not mean education is useless. It means human motivation is complex. Every social system contains visible purpose, hidden incentives, emotional reward structure, social signaling mechanisms. Humans are social animals. We evolved to live in groups. Group survival required cooperation, but cooperation was maintained through reputation, trust, and status balance. So the brain learned something beautiful and complicated. It learned to mix morality with social strategy. Daniel feels a strange calm, because understanding complexity reduces self-judgment. Sophia feels similar, because awareness removes unnecessary guilt. The narrator continues, "You are not expected to become perfectly pure. That is not human. The purpose of this knowledge is not cynicism. It is clarity. When you understand hidden motives, you become less easily manipulated, less blindly judgmental, more emotionally intelligent." Daniel closes his eyes for a moment. He thinks, maybe I work not only for success. Maybe I work for meaning, security, and respect together. Sophia thinks, maybe helping others can be both kindness and social expression. And that is not shameful. That is human, because human behavior is layered, like music with many instruments. In the next part, we will enter the deepest mirror, the uncomfortable truth about ourselves, the part where the elephant looks directly at us. And we must decide whether to look back. Let's begin. By now, Daniel and Sophia had started noticing patterns. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't life-shattering. It was subtle. Daniel began questioning his purely logical opinions. When he argued in meetings, was it really about truth or about winning? Sophia started reflecting on her generosity. When she helped someone, was it only compassion or also the quiet satisfaction of being seen as compassionate? This is the uncomfortable mirror the book holds up to all of us. It suggests that behind many noble actions, there could be hidden incentives, status, validation, belonging, reputation. And that realization can feel unsettling, because we like to believe we are fully aware of ourselves. But the point isn't to accuse. It's to awaken. Daniel didn't stop working hard. Sophia didn't stop being kind. They simply became more curious about their own motives. And that curiosity changed everything. Because once you dare to look into the mirror honestly, you stop living on autopilot. And that is where real self-awareness begins. Throughout this journey, we walk with Daniel and Sophia. We watched Daniel defend his logic. We saw Sophia reflect on her intentions. And slowly, both of them began to notice something uncomfortable. The elephant was always there. Not evil, not malicious, just powerful. Daniel realized that some of his career decisions weren't only about passion. They were about status, about being respected, about winning. Sophia noticed that even her kindness sometimes carried a quiet desire to be seen as kind. And here is the important part. Nothing about this makes them bad people. It makes them human. That's the core message of The Elephant in the Brain. Not to shame yourself, but to become aware. Because once you see the elephant, something changes. You pause before judging others. You question your own certainty. You become a little more honest with yourself. not perfectly honest, but more aware. And awareness is power. When you recognize your hidden motives, you don't eliminate them overnight, but you stop being completely controlled by them. You start choosing more consciously. You start acting with clarity instead of illusion. Daniel didn't become a different person. Sophia didn't become perfect. They simply learned to ask one powerful question: what might really be driving this? And maybe that question is where real growth begins. And so, as we close this journey, the elephant is still there. It hasn't disappeared. But now you can see it. You understand that human behavior is layered, that motives are rarely pure or simple, that even your best intentions may carry something deeper beneath them. And that's okay, because this book was never about removing the elephant. It was about noticing it. The moment you begin questioning your own hidden motives, without fear, without shame, you step into a higher level of awareness. And awareness is freedom. So move forward with curiosity. Observe yourself honestly. And remember, growth begins the day you choose to see what was always there. Thank you for spending this time with me and listening to this journey of understanding human psychology and hidden motives. Take care of your mind, stay curious, and keep learning. See you in the next story.